Welcome to a special program of VOA Tibetan Kunlin. Today on the show, we have an exclusive interview with the Under Secretary of State Uzra Zeya, the Special Coordinator for Tibetan Issues. With China dominating U.S. foreign policy, Under Secretary Zeya's appointment as the official coordinator for Tibetan issues comes at a critical moment. So we are pleased to have this opportunity to interview the Under Secretary about Tibet and Tibet policy. Under Secretary Zeya, welcome to VOA Kunlin.
Thank you so much, Dorje. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and Tashi Delek to you and your audience.
The Tibet issue has had a long-standing bipartisan congressional support, something we saw in the passage of Tibetan Policy and Support Act in 2020, as well as ongoing concerns of the international community. How do you plan for the State Department to respond in a meaningful way to the expectations of Congress and the international community?
Well, this is a very important question, Dorje, and I've been so heartened by the very strong expression of bipartisan congressional support for my selection to this for this position. And I received letters from senators and members of the House of Representatives that really demonstrate the strength of this commitment. I see real alignment from with the congressional perspective and President Biden's determination to center human rights and our democratic values in our foreign policy. And I will carry that spirit in my approach as special coordinator. Some of the key priorities that I'm focused on in this new role are, first and foremost, advancing the human rights of the Tibetan people and preserving their unique historical, cultural, religious, and linguistic traditions. This includes pushing back against PRC attempts to interfere in the selection, the education, the veneration of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, as well as Tibetan Buddhist leadership. Other important aspects of my role as special coordinator are countering PRC efforts at transnational repression and calling upon the PRC to end its harassment and its surveillance of Tibetan diaspora communities all over the world. I am also calling upon the PRC to return to direct dialogue without preconditions with His Holiness the Dalai Lama or his representatives to resolve differences peacefully and help achieve meaningful autonomy for Tibetans. We're also calling upon increased access for US officials, for journalists, for tourists to Tibet, and we seek reciprocity from the PRC with respect to the open access that their officials enjoy in the United States. Just two additional aspects of my role as special coordinator is I will work to promote efforts to protect the environment and water resources on the Tibetan plateau on which millions of people depend. And finally, we are resolute in meeting the humanitarian needs of Tibetan refugees in working to ensure they have opportunities for protection and livelihoods, but also working to prevent their forcible return to the PRC. So this is a multi-pronged agenda, but it's one on which I am proud and heartened by the very substantial bipartisan congressional support that the administration has received, and I will continue to closely engage the US Congress in this role.
We are in the middle of another COVID surge, but even with all the difficulties for traveling, when can we expect you to meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the democratically elected Central Tibetan administration leadership?
Well, you're absolutely right, Dorje, that the evolution of the pandemic has been a challenge for all of us, and certainly this COVID-related relief is a very important part of our humanitarian support for the Tibetan people. I was heartened to receive a letter of congratulations from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, expressing his support for my taking on this new role. And I made a very deliberate decision, my very first engagement, the week that I was announced as a special coordinator. My first engagement was with the North American representative of the Central Tibetan Administration. And for an administration that really prioritizes democratic renewal in our foreign policy, we're so heartened by the democratic progress that's been made by the CTA. So with conditions permitting, and hard to say, in terms of how the pandemic restrictions or challenges may evolve, I'm committed to continuing to engage the CTA and hope for the opportunity to engage His Holiness the Dalai Lama at the earliest opportunity.
In recent years, US-China relations have shifted dramatically. Do you see a need to review and reorient the US government's approach to the Tibet issue?
Well, certainly, this administration, I think, is taking a resolute and a very strategic approach, with respect to China. One in which our concerns about the very serious and severe human rights abuses perpetrated by the PRC against its own people remain at the forefront of our efforts. So certainly, this decision to re-elevate the special coordinator role to the undersecretary level, and my forthright engagement with international partners, with the US Congress, as I mentioned, directly with the CTA, reflects our deep concerns vis-a-vis Tibet. And these are concerns that Secretary Blinken and other senior officials have raised with our PRC counterparts. These are issues on which we seek to increase international coordination and solidarity, and it's a vital aspect of our approach to the PRC.
The Tibetans have a long history of looking to the United States for about its ideas and the values of freedom, rights, and democracy. What can you share with our audience inside Tibet and the Tibetan communities around the world about America's commitment to the issues the Tibetan people facing now and in the future?
Well, the United States and myself in my role as special coordinator, we remain absolutely committed to advancing the human rights of the Tibetan people and preserving your unique religious, cultural, historic, linguistic heritage. We're raising international awareness of human rights abuses in Tibet through our public reporting, our annual human rights reports. They are the most widely read reports produced by the US Department of State, through our public statements, through our public reporting, and through our international diplomacy and engagement. We've sought to increase access to Tibet by applying visa restrictions on PRC authorities who are substantially involved in restricting this very access that our Congress has mandated us to advance. And we believe that it is critical to support Tibetan efforts to shine a light on what is happening on the ground and to provide support ultimately to those those facing severe repression.
Under Secretary Zeya, thank you very much for your time, and we hope that you will be able to join our TV program in the future as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dorje, and a wonderful 2022 to you.